Tuning in to the online broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows. Interviewing celebrities and showrunners. And bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Welcome to the Mad Men AfterBuzz After Show. I'm not Matt Lieberman. I'm Joe Braswell.
You most certainly are not Matt Lieberman.
I'm not as good looking as he is.
Nope.
But I was gone last week. Now Matt's gone this week, so I'm here. I'm Joe Braswell. I'm joined by the lovely Sterling Cates.
Hey, hey.
Hey, Sterling.
What's up?
How you doing? And I'm also joined by the lovely Joe SanFelippo.
I'm here too. It's nice to be here.
Nice to be here. So we have lots to talk about here.
You think so?
Things are coming apart for Don Draper.
Well, let's talk about
Things
it.
are coming apart. I think things are sort of coming apart mostly for Don Draper. Peggy has an issue with Mathis. You know, we'll talk about a little later. Oh my gosh.
Joan
is off in
Joan
LA.
is off in LA, making friends with Richard.
With Bruce Greenwood.
And
the lovely Bruce Greenwood.
And,
who's fantastic.
And Glenn Bishop.
And the return of Glenn Bishop. Who's
Return
looking
of
a
the Glenn.
looking a lot like Robert Pattinson.
Yes, he really is,
Yeah.
huh? He's vamped out.
Well, that's Matthew Weiner's son.
Is it?
Martin Weiner. Yeah. And so that's the only reason I think he's cast in this.
Oh.
And keeps coming back.
Yes, it is making
Deep water.
I was saying, like, he was creepy. The scene with Glenn and Betty was creepy back when it happened the first time, but I think he's still creepy. That
Very creepy.
Yeah.
It's very hard to watch.
Yeah. But Betty was a little creepy this time around too.
I think Betty was. I thought it was actually quite sweet.
You felt that
What?
sweet?
I thought it was sweet. Yeah,
Here's
I
to
did.
you, Mrs.
I
Ryan.
did. Listen. I think that we can jump right into that. I think that it was initially creepy how she was obviously clearly attracted to him, or like, oh, it's you, Glenn,
Enjoying the attention,
And
certainly.
Sally's giving them the look back and forth. But I think towards the end, when she says, like, I'm married, and then she's like comforting him because he's going off to war, and it's kind of like, you know what, kid, it's okay. She puts her hand on his cheek. I thought that
That's
was
a fair
sweet.
point. It landed in a nice place.
It landed in a sweet place. My whole point.
I personally don't think that either of them had chemistry with each other. And then also, people talk a lot about Betty coming into like all of this emotional maturity, especially this season.
Right.
But if she can't think of another reason to say no to this like teenager coming on to her, other than the fact that she's married, I just don't think she is actually maturing that much.
Right. So you think that was the move? Like, I'm married is not.
Yeah. Like it's like, is that the only reason you're saying
the only
no
move you
here?
got.
Like there are so many reasons you should say no,
As
and the fact
opposed to
that you're
Glenn,
married.
what the hell?
Yeah.
Like, get out of here.
You're my daughter's friend.
And
Right.
you're the creepiest person I've ever met.
Yeah.
Other than, like, that's a good reason to say no, I think.
Oh, Glenn.
Oh, Glenn.
All right. Well, let's back up. So, what do you think of this episode, Joe? How do you feel about this episode?
I've seen some people online who are mad at this season, like the way it's kind of shaking out, and I love this show. I love everything about it, and like I'm watching this episode, and I'm just, it's like all the little things are laid out in front of us, all little clues as to where we're gonna go. And when you see the 1970 magazines that he's tossing down, welcome to 1970, right around the corner, it's 1970. This show was the 60s, and so when you saw those, you knew this whole thing is over. I love it. I love everything about it, and I love the way they ended this episode. It cut you on a really nice, clean slate, fresh.
We talked about before. Matthew Weiner he thought season 6 was the end. So season 6 was written as the end. So this is really like this is kind of like an epilogue, if you will. Like this is sort of like after even season 7.7, the first half of season was
that was a solid end.
That was a solid end. Everyone's happy. We're all millionaires. Cooper's dancing away. Like it was great. So now.
But if you look at it a little bit meta, a little bit more like what's the if he's also kind of playing with us a little bit. I mean, it's kind of great. Like yeah, we all win. Everybody wins. And now the forecast, especially this episode. Okay, now what?
That to me is
Right.
the theme of this entire back
Right.
half. Is the
Absolutely. And now what?
Well, it really didn't forecast much at all. I feel like it was just Don asking everyone around him what they think the future looks like when really he has no idea what's going to happen. And especially at the end when we just see him, now he doesn't have a place to live. He's $1 million short. He doesn't have a wife or really a relationship with Sally or any of the kids.
Right.
So it's from
really
now,
falling apart.
we only have 4 episodes to figure out, like, are we ever going to know what Don Draper does, or is it just going to...
Or what will become of him? I mean,
Yeah.
it's interesting. Like, another thing they talk about is this story could have ended, this sort of workplace drama meets, relationship drama of Mad Men. Could have really ended in every separate season, but then we get a little more and a little more. There's not many real cliffhangers, but now it sort of feels like a thing that you dip in at any point of these people's lives, you'll find out sort of where they are in their lives. So I don't know that we'll get I don't know if we'll get a real end. I don't know if we'll get like the definitive, and that's what happens to Don Draper. I hope we don't have like a flash forward to like Don in like 1991.
Right, like they did at Will and Grace, like the end of Will and Grace, where suddenly they're 110 and haven't hung out.
Yeah, I don't want to flash forward, but I don't know what will become of them. But
Well, I mean, that's life, right? I mean, you got to. It's funny. It's hard to conceive of it, but I was visiting my wife's grandfather, who's 93, 94 this year, and he was a bombardier in World War II. And you see all the pictures of him in World War II, and then you see what he did in the 60s and 70s when he was at his absolute peak, right? That's when you hit him with the middle of the bat.
Yep.
And then you see him now in a home, and he's still sharp, but he needs help all the time. And it's fascinating to kind of recognize that these men and women went through all these eras. They're not of a particular era. They're just people, and it all continues. It keeps going. Mm-hmm. So all the things that we kind of use as shorthand to remember the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, people kept going through that stuff. I mean, these were little blinks,
Right.
and it keeps going. And it's difficult, I think, sometimes for us to remember that, that this is not a finite thing. This all continues to go.
Yeah.
It keeps moving.
And also, I think this season asks the question: what happens when you get everything you ask for? I mean,
That's the question.
This is like they've been fighting, and from every iteration of the agency. We've seen the growth from Peggy from a secretary, and Joan from an office manager, and to all these people. Even Pete, they have this entire evolution of everyone there, and now even Ted Shaw. We've seen his evolution, and now they're all there, and it's kind of like, well, I don't know.
Now what?
Pharmaceuticals?
Well, that's the thing. He goes to everybody at the firm, everybody whose opinions we kind of have come to value, and nobody has an actual plan personally for the future.
Well, Peggy does.
Peggy did say.
But for Don,
To
when
have a
he's
great
here,
idea.
he's wanting an answer for himself from Peggy.
Right,
yes.
And she's like, I want to be creative director. And he's, well, I've already done that. I want to land a big account. He's like, well, I've done
Yeah.
that. So what's next? Like, what do I do?
Right.
Is what I feel like he was trying to get at.
No, that's a great point. With Ted too, he's really trying to get the mirror for himself. And Ted's got a mustache, and he's like, "Hey,
Well,
man, pharmaceuticals."
Yeah.
Ted had like no goal compared to Peggy.
But Peggy had some real things like I want to create something meaningful.
Yeah.
That's something. Don's like,
But I don't know. I'm not so sure.
Well, yeah. Well, it's interesting how small how narrow everyone's focus was.
right.
In regard to that question. Now, obviously, you're answering that question at work, so I mean, you're probably thinking in terms of work.
Well, no. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. This is their life. Their work. All these people, Pete, Peggy, Don, this is their life. So that this is kind of, I think that's the whole point. Like, they don't have any ambitions. They can't see outside of the next account or the bigger account or create anything more meaningful because that's all they know.
Yeah.
Right. I think that's a commentary there.
So if that's the deal, then when you're searching for that next thing, that bigger thing, that bigger meaning, no one here is going to be able to answer that question. And isn't that what we get out of this episode, right? The only person who comes close is Peggy, and even then, it's still somewhat work related. I want to create something that matters. So I mean, it's interesting that no one's goals were anything you could hang your hat on for a Gettysburg Address, quote unquote. No one's
Right.
goals were anything that you could make aspirational.
Right.
There was no one in that office that came up with a goal where you'd be like, that's it, that's the spot. And I think that's the whole point. And I love the idea of paralleling Don and Richard, because here's Richard, who did it all. He's a millionaire. If he's to be trusted as a narrator, I think he is. And he did everything he was supposed to do. And he's he's left his wife. He wants to travel. He wants to do all these things. He's got a plan, but he's way late, right?
Right.
He's going at it way late in life. And then of course he meets Joan, and he probably has a pretty good chance of getting waylaid here.
Well, I want to unpack that whole thing in a second here because I want to get into that whole storyline.
But that's interesting to me. Like, okay, if everybody's aspirations going forward are work related, Richard's are not. Richard's, he wants to travel. He wants to be free. He wants to go and check it all out.
Right.
And maybe that's maybe that's something Dawn can look at.
Well, there's an interesting juxtaposition between sort of like all the people in this world, and then here's Richard in this world. Like this is. I'm doing everything I want, this is what you guys are tied to, but I'm doing everything I want. So there's sort of a parallel between maybe, the opposite side of what Don is possibly with Richard. I mean, we'll see how that plays out. But I do want to talk about Don. I want to talk about this first, Don with the realtor and him trying to sell the place.
His patio furniture?
And I just want to talk about what I thought that scene was horribly sad and awesome at the same time when she's telling him, and he's like, what's wrong? What's the big deal? Like, and Don's like, I'm a salesman. Like, this is easy. Yeah. Sell him dreams. Tell him how he created the Frisbee, and they're off to France. And they're
in the castle. Tax problems.
Yeah.
Done.
Well, and his ability to create a picture like that, he should be perfect for writing the speech, and it should be a cakewalk for him. But the fact that he's making it so about his own personal life as opposed to, just lay out the future of this company really quickly. Like, just sell them on that. It doesn't have to be a huge thing, but he really thinks hard into it. But we know he can create those, those ideal futures or paint that picture for us.
Sure, I mean that's Don Draper. I mean, Don is the guy who brought us the carousel speech, so he's definitely capable of sort of bringing us these things. But like in that moment in the apartment when he's having a conversation with the realtor and she's saying she's having problems. This place looks sad. This place looks like a guy who spilt wine on the whose wife left him and is divorced and
he doesn't care enough about himself to clean it up.
That was harsh. I was like,
there's nothing. There's no way. There's no way to shine a bigger mirror on your life than to sell your house. Yeah. There's no more clear-cut way to take a real stock of yourself than to sell or buy a home.
No, very
because
true.
You are absolutely. You can BS people at work, and you can paint all the pictures you want, and you can lie to people all you want, and people will take for granted that when you had the cocktail party, maybe things weren't quite what you wanted them to be.
Right.
Whatever. But the reality is, when someone is buying your home, they're buying your baggage. Yeah. They're buying your lifestyle, and you can't hide from that.
And more importantly, that's a great point, Joe. More importantly, when the realtor is having that conversation with you, she's having that sobering conversation with you. You're like, my house is great. I'm great. This place is awesome. It's like, no.
No, this is crap.
She said this place reeks of failure. So
and they said,
that's
she was harsh.
And failure was the theme. The failure over and over again. Mathis, you're a failure. This is a failure. Failure was the theme in this episode.
This place reeks of failure is very harsh. I thought that was a very harsh critique of the house and Don. Spot on.
I'd have fired that realtor. I wouldn't have kept her around. She was not very nice.
No.
Well, he said, there's been a lot of great memories here. But when I heard that, I was like, what are the great memories?
No.
I don't even... I can't even think of one off the top.
There's
one great memory.
Well, I think for us, exactly.
And he didn't even really enjoy that much.
No, I think...
maybe not. Yeah.
Well, you did, but he did.
I did. I enjoyed it.
Both of you did. So.
I think that... I think that was also the parallel there. I think Don is a horrible realization for Don that, like, the emptiness of that whole thing, how fast it's over. He's like, God, there's been so many great memories here, and this place is wonderful, and it's this wonderful, this wonderful apartment. She's like, no, and it's like, I think for him, it's like, God, this really, this is empty. It's like I'm left with nothing. I think all those wonderful memories, like the apartment, like everything else, is this sort of contrived thing that was not really real in the first place. I think that, like, the fact, even at the end of last episode, he's sort of sitting in the empty apartment, sort of like really, that felt like the beginning of either the beginning of the end or the beginning of a transition. And now at the end of this episode, with it sold, him standing outside the apartment. I mean, that's not by accident. Like, it makes you wonder where Don's, where he's going, but he's getting... he's losing weight. I mean, he's dropping the apartment. He's empty.
We're deconstructing him. All the trappings that he's built around himself, and we should get to that. Obviously, we'll get to the girls at dinner, Sally and her friends. When you go to identify yourself with a shorthand, right? And the girl says, "Oh, well, you live in New York, and do you live in a penthouse on the approach?" As a matter of fact, I do. You're identified immediately. You can strap yourself into that, and you are that guy.
Right.
And when and that's gone. That is over. Now who am I? What am I?
I had a question. We talked about this in week 1, but it feels like they're setting this up maybe to sort of strip Don back to Dick Whitman, hopefully, because at the end of the day, hopefully, and this is what I hope, and I don't know if you guys think the same thing. At the end of the day, he's only like once the construction of Don Draper was this guy was pretty much a constructed guy who he's built into this wonderful New York Manhattan genius. But then Dick Whitman is the sort of deconstructed California guy in polo shirts. I mean, maybe this is us seeing him being deconstructed back to a place where he realizes all the rest of that stuff is BS. And what's really means something is Dick Whitman is me. I hope that's it. I don't know. What do you
I don't know if he'll make it that far in that process.
Well,
I don't know.
Do you think? I mean, do you think that we're headed for a bad place with Don? Like people?
No, I don't think so.
Is that what do you think, Sterling?
I just feel like he's really just not going to change ever.
See, I think there's an opportunity.
Back to be completely Dick Whitman, I just feel like that's a big transition from where he is right now. But he doesn't have anything right now at the end of this episode, so he really could go anywhere.
That's what I'm saying. He's being forced to change because things are changing around him.
We talked about it last week, right? Because when Megan's mom took had all the furniture pulled out, right? That is all the vestiges, all the stuff you could hide behind, right? As a divorced guy, all the stuff you could kind of pretend was still your life. It's all gone, right? And so I think last week my thought was if he comes back this week and he's hired a designer to put a new house, a new set of furniture in there, which is he's got plenty of money, he could do that overnight.
Sure.
Then there's no hope for him. That was my thought. Yeah. But if he took it as an opportunity to revamp and rethink, then I think he's got an opportunity really to figure out who he is. And so I kind of think that to me it's hopeful. The patio furniture in the living room.
It's so hard to know where they're going to go with this show. I never know.
Whatever.
My predictions are never right.
So we get we get out of that and we see as he gets to the office and we talked about this. We talked about Roger sort of charges him with writing this Gettysburg Address type speech, and we know that Don, as you mentioned, Don is the guy to write these speeches, and we think that Don's going to hit this out of the park, of course, but he's struggling with it. And we touched on all this before. Him trying to find out sort of, this is something that you would think that Don could just do in his sleep, right? But now, him examining what does this all mean at a meta level is sort of like almost causing an internal breakdown, right?
Well, there's a when you start a business, there's a lovely period of time that you hate when you're in it, but when you look back on it, you get it.
Right.
There's the struggle to survive, and the struggle to survive will just absolutely lean you out. You don't have any room for anything else. There's no room for, what will we do in 10 years? What will we do in 20 years? Screw it. Can I keep the lights on for the next 6 weeks? Can I keep the lights on for the next 8 months? And once you get past all that, then you got to figure out some really deep stuff.
Right.
And I think that moment, he said it in that meeting with Ted. When they first before McCann, all I ever thought was, will we be in business next year? Will we be in business, in a few months? But now he's got to face, like, you have real questions, right? I wrote down white people problems because that's, that's what occurred to me. But it's like when you have when you have enough success, then you got to figure out what it means. When you don't have the success, you're just hustling. You don't need to think.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
you don't have the room.
And you see that in the scene with Peggy when she just wants her performance review. She just wants to be told that she's doing a good job.
Tell me I'm pretty.
Yeah,
so,
she just
so
tell
Peggy,
me that I've had a great year.
Right?
Yeah.
And he's like, what do you see in your future?
Right.
And she's, is that on there?
Yeah.
What?
That was the quintessential Peggy and Don scene, though. It seems like that sort of sums up their entire relationship of like Peggy being like, of course Don has given a performance review like validate me, Don. Tell me that like I'm doing a great job. I need to hear this.
Right.
And he's like, all right, well.
Well, tell me you're paying attention too. I'm working my ass off. You know?
Yeah,
that's what the money's for.
Right. That line. Well, let's go back to that. I want to talk briefly about the whole Peter Pan debacle. So my boy, what's my man's name? Mathis has the Peter Pan account, and they need Don to sign off on it. Don goes in. They run off this Dear John letter campaign, which seems a little goofy to me. Have a horrible tag. Don corrects the tag. They go to pitch, and it goes horribly wrong. Right? They get into argument in front of the client. This is
Yes.
And so Mathis comes in to seek advice from Don, like almost coming to Don for all the answers. And I feel like Don, who's angry and dismissive, I thought he gave him pretty good advice. I don't know. Did you?
Well, it was very Don Draper advice. And the thing about that is only Don Draper can effectively be Don Draper.
Right.
Someone like Mathis could never pull off, telling the client that they're the asshole in the situation.
Right.
So.
Which was the lesson?
Yeah,
That's what happens to me and Joe Flip all the time. I can never get away with this guy gets away with.
Oh, that is true.
15
There's,
years. See?
True.
Can't do it.
and I will say this: most people can't get away with the crap you get away with.
What does that mean?
I mean, I'm 20 minutes late for everything in your life. Huh? God bless you. But it's interesting because when you live in that what they do it, they did that whole thing on was it Seinfeld where they did the
Bizarro?
no, it was 30 Rock where they did the bubble. You live in the handsome bubble.
Oh yeah.
You remember the good-looking
Yes,
bubble?
yes.
And that was Don. That was John that did that. And it was, you live in that bubble, right? And you don't know it.
Well, it's interesting. Like Matthew Weiner also mentioned that, like, he never shied away in the series from how beautiful, Don Draper and Betty Draper are. Like, he's like, even Roger said
That's a
like,
real thing.
Roger said like they belong on the wedding cake. Like
Right?
all the time.
They're
like
perfect.
you guys are perfect. And so they've always the whole series. But I love the way they're really dealing with this in a real sort of in your face way. And that confrontation, that the advice he told Don, he told Mathis was great. But actually, there's no way that Mathis can execute that.
Exactly.
No, he could execute the soap, but he couldn't
Right.
he couldn't execute the bravado. There
And
was
to
no
be
way.
fair, Don told him to do the soap line, not the first one he said.
Yeah, 'cause he's like, "You're
that
not
was just
me."
an example of
Right.
something he did.
But I do like the idea and the parallels that Sally made between he and Betty. I like the idea of Don being called out on that.
Absolutely.
But his reaction
You don't
to
have character,
me
you're
said
just
that
handsome.
he already knew that. He was just like, yeah, you're just like your mother and I.
Right. Oh, I mean, to Sally at the end.
Sally
there.
at the end,
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
And he didn't even, when Mathis came back in and told him, you're just handsome, you don't have any character.
Right.
He wasn't like, yes, I do, or defend.
No.
He just was like, we all have our problems.
Well, that's how do you think? Well, how do you think he felt about that? Because I feel Don feels like he's more than just a pretty face. I think he feels that way. But hearing that from Mathis, it didn't seem to really land or sting, like you said. It didn't seem to land or sting. But he still fired him.
Well, yeah, that's what I was going to say. Eventually, at some point, you've crossed a line, and then you can just have those what you call it, like it's almost like the old Get Smart promo from back in the day. The walls just come down. Whang!
Right.
I'm the boss. You said that to me. You can't say that to me. You're fired.
Right.
And so I no longer have to address whatever it is you are saying, because status takes over, and what's appropriate in the workplace takes over, and I no longer have to actually deal with this in a real way, because you've crossed over into a place where I have to fire you. So this conversation's over. I mean, that's essentially what happens.
Sure. All right. So, but do you think? Well, okay.
But with Sally, the status is different, obviously.
Right.
And so,
wait. Do you think he's justified in fireman?
I don't think Mathis gave him a choice. How do you back out from that?
I don't know. You cut the kid a break.
Well, you cut him the break. He cut him the break the first time.
Right.
When Pete wanted to fire him.
Right.
And then the second time, you got up in my face. Right.
Yeah.
You said that I have no character.
Right.
And the first thing, all that happened was you were off the business. You weren't fired.
Yeah.
But you went and got in my grill, and you said I have no character. So just because I'm handsome, well, screw you. You're out. Good night.
And Mathis can't blame Don for how he acted in that meeting. So
Right.
it's a whole-
You're a grown ass man. I gave you some ideas.
Very true.
I didn't tell you to take the grenade in there and throw it at them. That was your idea.
And he delivered that line too, just so poorly.
Yes, the timing was. the comedic timing was a 10.
It was funny for us to watch.
The comedic timing for us was a 10.
I loved Pete's reaction. He was just like, "What
It's the
are
big
you doing?"
collective oh.
No, everyone in that office was just stunned.
Yeah.
The hopeful eyebrows were great.
I want to get to Joan. I want to get to Joan in a second, but I wanted to first go back to the whole Betty. The return of Betty we saw her last week, but the return of Sally, which is cool. And it was cool to see Betty and Sally's interaction, even though they still have sort of a cold reaction. I mean, how did you take the sort of the Betty? Betty telling Sally there'll be boys there. And
Well, I think this episode for Sally and Betty was a really good one until Glenn showed up.
Right.
Because even when they were in the kitchen and they were having a little bit of a bonding moment, and even when Sally was a little quick with her, was a little sarcastic, she didn't immediately ground her like she would have done in the past. She just kind of played it off, and then tried to get. And she gave her some like motherly advice about when she went on the trip. I was like, wow, I was like, wow, this is a lot of progress there.
Sally shut her down though. She shut her down funny though.
But it was fun.
It was fun. It wasn't weird. It wasn't mean.
Late, Mom, and so am I.
So am I. That was great. That
was a great little joke to throw at your mom sometimes. But it wasn't until when Glenn showed up and she gave her the side eye and was well, to watch your mom flirt with this kid that you've had a relationship with.
Well, also I think it's Sally said at the end, it's like people give you attention and you guys just ooze. You guys can't help yourselves,
right.
and I think that's pretty spot on for what we know about both of those characters. And so it was interesting to sort of have Sally call them both out in that way, because Betty, I mean, I can't tell what's going on there, because is it that Betty was getting that attention from him, or was Betty genuinely attracted to Glenn? Like, what was happening in that sequence?
I think it's just the attention. Well, I don't want to think that she's attracted to him.
Well, let me ask you this, and I wonder if
she was like, oh, Glenn.
Well, let me ask you this. This is the question.
Wait, what?
So, is it a matter of, okay, this person's attracted to me, but this person's a 4, and it doesn't matter if a 4 is attracted to me. That's to be expected. But wait, he's elevated. Now he's an 8, and he's attracted to me.
No, Joe. He wasn't a 4. He was 4. He was a kid.
Okay, but that's a fair point.
He was like 7.
But I guess it seems to me that it's a matter of like relevance. It's a matter of like now he's old enough, and more importantly, he's good looking enough for that to matter to her. Does that make any sense?
So,
like, not that necessarily that she's really attracted to him, but that he's.
Is your theory that, like, when he was 9 years old or whatever and hitting on her, it was weird, but now that he's old, it's
it's not weird.
Remember when you were 9?
It makes it even weirder because she gave him like some of her hair, and he's probably had that and like sleeps with it at night. And just knowing that should creep you out.
Yeah.
But now she's like, oh, you're back. You like loved me all these years, and you're.
But if we're taking this to be the thing that she and Dawn have in common in Sally's eyes, let's compare them, because you had dinner with those girls. And when the goofy girl with the braces was flirting with him, that didn't bother Sally at all. But the one who was actually pretending to be a little sophisticated, who was laying it down a little bit, that bothered her.
Well, she was like really flirting, like
but
she was doing the glass twist and the whole like, oh, so the penthouse,
lighting the cigarette.
Yeah, she, the other girl's like,
but these,
Mr. Draper. Like, who's going bothered by that?
My point is that they are actually potential mate material. I think in a more basic way. I think that there's a possibility that in 3 or 4 years, if that girl was 3 years older, Dawn would definitely hit that.
Oh,
come on, think it through.
Yeah.
Come on, if she was 21 and he met her in a bar, absolutely, 20. No questions asked.
I think the difference between Betty and Dawn is that I don't know if there's like a difference, but Betty feels more intentional when she's getting that intention, the way she responds. But for Don, I feel like it's just so natural, and he doesn't even notice that he's doing it sometimes.
Right.
Because he's just Don Draper, you know?
Just donning it up.
He's just donning it up, and he doesn't even know when he's being charming or whatever.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter how old they are.
I agree. I mean, he's
like,
I think he's a little self-aware.
Yeah.
Well, I think he's a little self-aware sometimes, but for the most part, I think he's doing his thing. Were you surprised to see Glenn? Did you think Glenn was attractive?
No, not at all.
You're like, oh, look at this hottie.
I just don't. There just wasn't any chemistry. Doesn't have any like facial reactions. It was very one-dimensional to me.
That Weiner kid, not very good of an actor. Not a good actor.
I think, I don't know, but
I thought it was unnecessary to bring him back.
Okay.
So you think it was it was Weiner saying, "Come on, son, we'll bring you back one more time."
I mean, I don't know. Yeah, but in the last final episodes, I wasn't thinking, oh, I really hope they bring Glenn back.
Right.
I completely forgot about it.
It was good to see Glenn. For me, it was good to see Glenn. I thought it was good to see him. I thought it was, I don't know. There's people. we're also waiting for Sal to come back. I don't know if he will come back, but like,
I remember Sal,
yeah. Time Magazine, I think Time had a big write up on like all the. Time.com, I should say, had all the longest
recap.
The longest of recurring characters, the longest gap since you've seen someone, like 22 episodes, 30 episodes, whatever. And Glenn's up there. But anyway, I'm sorry. So it was good to see Glenn. I thought it was cool. I was a little shocked that he did all that for Betty, or not all that for Betty, but that he made his move. I actually thought Betty was going to go for it. Did anyone think Betty was going to go for it?
I didn't want her to.
I didn't want her to, but
I thought she would.
I thought she would.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been surprised if she did. Honestly,
yeah. There's something about the two of them. You touched on it earlier, where they both have very, very blank. They both don't do much on camera. They both are very, very, very. So I don't find much empathy. I've never had empathy for Betty, and I certainly don't have any for Glenn. So it was interesting to watch because it was almost academic. It was almost like, well, if they hook up, okay. If they don't hook up, okay. None of my business.
So wait, neither of you were moved.
It felt really forced. I don't know. It just didn't seem.
But neither of you were moved with the whole
I don't know. If I felt like they had some chemistry, I would have been like, all right, Betty, I can see
With
him
the whole
doing that.
hand on the cheek and I'll
Yeah,
send you
like
off.
with the girl with Don Draper, I felt like there was a little bit of chemistry
little
there.
something, yeah.
But with Betty, that's
Why is
kind
it
of
gross? In a year, it's legal.
But there was just a little bit of something there, as
was.
inappropriate as that is.
Yeah.
But with Glenn and Betty, it was just I didn't feel like there was
chemistry.
any connection.
I thought it might happen, but I definitely did not think there was any chemistry. But I liked the way it got turned around, and I thought that was a rare moment of sort of Betty of compassion.
It sounds like you would have rather Betty kiss Glenn than Don hook up with the.
100%. I think.
Well,
I mean,
I guess he's 18, so that's different.
You know, what I think was interesting about this.
That's huge difference.
Yeah, I can.
Betty knows how to behave. Like she knows how things are supposed to be done. Like it seems to me like that it kind of flows both ways. Like she knows how to send a boy off to war. She said the right things.
Yeah.
She said, "You'll come back. I'm sure of it. You'll be fine."
Great point.
She said all the right stuff.
They have all the comforts of home.
Right? She said all the
Sure
things.
they do.
No.
All the
Vietnam.
All the comforts of home.
all
Sorry.
the she said it right.
Yeah.
They're right. In Vietnam, you know, and we love you long anyway. So all the stuff that she's supposed to say, sending a boy off, she said. And Sally said none of them. She had nothing to say. She had no idea how to handle it. She lost her temper. She said she's going to go murder kids. But Betty knows the things to say. And it was interesting to me. It's almost like there's a part of Betty that's like pre-programmed.
Right.
And so when Glenn approached her, for her, she didn't recognize him. Here's an attractive young man who obviously feels she's attractive. She knows the things she's supposed to do. Let me check my hair. Let me flirt with you just right. Did you want a beer? Absolutely, I can get you a beer. Why the hell are you getting an 18-year-old a beer? Because an attractive man who's visiting your house asked for one.
Legal age was 18 back then,
Yeah,
pal.
and if he's old enough to fight in the war, he's old enough to have a beer.
That's right.
But it's just interesting to me. Things that she knows the stuff she's supposed to do.
Yeah, no, those are good points. So, so transitioning that and our juxtaposing that against the send-off dinner with Don and the girls, we kind of touched this a little bit. The girls flirting with Don, I thought he handled it appropriately. Did you feel like he was
too.
flirting
I thought it was
back?
fine. No, I don't feel like he was flirting that much, except for like when he lit her cigarette a little bit,
Right.
or something there.
There's that thin line between being charming and throwing a party for your daughter and making sure everybody had a good time and flirting with the girl who's laying it down a little too thick. It's a wishy-washy place.
I loved when Sally was like, "I just want to eat dinner. I don't
That's all
want
I
to
want,
talk
Dad."
about my dreams.
Right.
I don't want to hear you talk anymore."
What the hell is wrong with you? But he didn't do anything. I agree with you. He seemed like he behaved.
I thought he was just his typical self, normal self.
I did too. But I did like Sally. I think Sally said touched on this earlier. I think Sally calling his parents out on that whole sort of like, getting by on your looks and when you get attention and I don't want to be like you. But Don's response I thought was very fatherly and very sweet. It actually moved me a little bit. Like say like, look, you are like us. You're beautiful. But it's up to you to be something more. Like you're going to be more, and I thought that was really, really good. And it's just good fatherly advice to your daughter, even though she
kind of talking to himself too,
Again,
like we were saying.
And he's also talking to himself.
Like so much fatherly advice. You just those moments where you're like, oh crap, I just said that, but am I doing that?
Right.
Maybe not.
But do you think it landed? What do you think it was? First of all, do you think it was genuine advice? Do you think it was all projected back to himself? And do you think it landed with Sally at all, or do you think she just blew it off?
I think stuff lands with Sally more than we realize. And I think the scene that when she calls Glenn's mother, apparently, that scene of her on the phone I loved that scene of her.
That was really
because she acted this certain way, but then when she thought about it and then she was calling, to apologize and had to say goodbye, she realizes the seriousness of it.
Right.
And so I think she does realize things more than we give her credit for.
Right.
Yes.
I thought so too. Okay. All right. So that's that. So we'll who knows what's next for Don Draper. Let's go back and talk briefly about Joan and her trip to L.A. And Joan
And Lou Avery.
and
back.
Lou.
Yeah.
Freaking, I don't like Lou.
I don't
He's
either.
don't like Lou.
Lou's
I thought we were done with him, and then all of a sudden he just pops in the LA.
What's his
Goddamn
cartoon?
I don't remember
Beetle,
the name.
Monkey, it's like Beetle Bailey kind of thing. It's
Bailey
like,
Monkey. Yeah.
he's
Wasn't
like
it like Scouts Honor?
Scouts
Scouts Honor.
Yeah.
That's right. Scouts Honor.
Nice pull.
Scouts Honor. He had a meeting at Hanna-Barbera. The directions are right.
Jesus.
Sunset the Highland. Hit the
Yeah, I was gonna say.
I'm like, where's he going in the valley?
I'm trying to think about it.
It's Hanna-Barbera. Hanna-Barbera.
Oh, that's hilarious.
I hope he sells it. Damn it. I hope Scott Steiner makes it.
Makes a ton of money.
Well, I mean, we learned that he's working way more on his cartoon than he is anything with advertising.
And again, follow your dreams. What does he want? This is something like, what's out there for him? Scout Sauner's out there for him.
This damn monkey.
Like,
this damn monkey's
slaving away over his
huge.
stupid pharmaceutical account. Like, Scout Sauner's going to be huge. So, Joan's in LA. She, seems to love it, ordering the room service, and seems to love the life away from her kid.
Enjoying it, yeah.
Enjoying it. And then, goes to have this wonderful sort of these secret interviews, and then runs into my man, Bruce Greenwood.
Bruce Greenwood.
What a charmer.
You
That's
love
all I
him.
got. I love him. He was so good.
I mean, he wears a leisure suit like no other.
Oh,
I mean,
I loved his Reagan outfit, his last outfit with the
Yo.
belt
With the
and
tan
the
and the- yeah.
Not since Mr. Furley has a brother worn a leisure suit and an ascot scarf.
That was
that well.
That was straight
on some
Ronald
Ralph
Reagan.
Furley and
That
Ronald
was
Reagan stuff right
Ronald
there.
Reagan, Governor of California, action right there.
So he was smooth. As a woman, what do you think of his moves? His smooth move with the business card.
I liked him. I thought that, we in the last time we saw Joan with what's the guy's name? He proposed to her and she turned it down
Oh,
because she wants to actually find real love.
right.
Benson.
Yeah, Benson.
Yeah.
And so at first I was like, oh, this could be her chance to
Right.
have everything that she wants and have
Right.
real love and have that, have someone who has his own money and will allow her to do her own thing. And
Right.
it seems to be everything that she could want.
He
So-
seems genuine. I mean, he seems a little too good to be true. I mean, maybe I'm doing the wrong.
Well, we learned that, I don't think, with the whole kid situation, I don't know if it'll last.
Right.
Since he says he's done raising kids.
He's sort of ping-ponging back and forth
Yeah.
because Joan's Joan, but I don't know. What did you think of the whole?
I thought he was terrific. I thought, smooth as hell. First off,
Smooth as
hey,
hell.
a woman like you asked me if I'm so and so. I'm so and so. I mean,
Yeah, that was good.
He's like Robert Wagner in Heart to Heart.
remember that?
He was smooth as hell.
and now
What
everybody's
else
going heart to heart. These guys are old as hell.
Old as hell. I already dropped the Mr. Furley earlier.
Oh,
Like,
man.
Google Mr. Furley. No, and the line about cancel your flight. We're gonna drive up to
right.
Malibu, have a
I have
lobster.
a lobster at those tourist traps. Everybody's asking each other to get mad. And then we're going to go up to Santa Barbara at the Biltmore. I'm going to watch you get in and out of the pool. I was like,
I'm like, come on! I'm like, bro, I'm writing that down. Get in, out, pool. Watch you.
That's why.
Anyway, yeah, he's good.
oh, so good, man, and so smooth. And I bought him. That's what I love about him because he's always, as an actor, he's so relaxed.
Right.
And so, like when he's laying there in bed with her, and she says, "What are you, movie producer too?" He goes, "No." Like the way he said it, I was like, "No, he's a real guy."
I'm gonna try that line on them like Mathis. I want to put you in the Biltmore on the pool on the. God.
I want you to watch in and out of the pool. You watch me get in and out of the pool.
Lobster. I want you to be a lobster in the pool.
You guys aren't going to get any
No?
responses.
All
No.
right. All right.
But we were talking about this earlier. I don't think Joan was out of place by not being upfront about her kid in that
Really?
situation when they're in LA and he's like,
Right.
do you have any
Well,
mouths
do you have
to
mouths?
feed?
Right.
But and
you
she's
have
like, I
mouths
just
to
have
feed.
the job that I've always wanted, which
Right.
isn't a lie.
Exactly.
And she at this point probably doesn't think that it's going any further than it is.
They're in LA.
And
It's
this
a
is-
fling,
And this
you
is
know?
nothing that any of the guys on the show haven't done.
Right.
So,
And yeah,
Well,
and-
let me.
Don doesn't come out about Sally and all the other kids.
Sure. No,
When
you're
he's
right.
like,
No,
you
you're
know what
right.
I mean?
Yeah, I think
and,
she's cool.
And I get it, and I totally get it. And I just thought because at the end of this thing, he gets mad, and I know that people respond to that, and you did, and I it makes sense. But in fairness, he did say, "So you have mouths to feed?" She said no. That was him asking if there's a kid. And the second time you watch it, you watch the relief on his smile, and you're like, oh. All right, now I get it. Now I saw it a little bit
Well, this is
differently.
how I took that conversation. So she said, I have to work just because, she's worked so hard to get to where she is. She's
Right.
gone through a lot of things to get there. And he's just like, oh, the only reason you would have to work is because you have mouths to feed. She could be proud of her job. She doesn't have to work because of her
He
son.
asked
She
the
could
question.
marry rich and not have to worry
Fair
about
enough.
feeding her son. So her honest answer is no, I've gotten to this point.
That's true. You could interpret it from that. You can interpret it that.
I'm with
worked
Sterling on
hard,
this one,
worked
Joe.
hard to get there. That's why she has to work. She has
I got
that
you.
that Dawn has to work.
Right.
I got you. Well, the question
She has
he
to
was
work.
asking was,
I'm with you.
do you have kids?
I know,
The question she answered was, no, I don't need the job to feed people.
She admitted it.
Right.
She didn't necessarily
She's a millionaire. She's got money.
lie about it.
She got $1 million. So
Yeah.
at least she don't need to worry about it.
Yeah.
So maybe that was her response, right? But he obviously was asking a different question.
I love Joan. I'm always just
I was
on her
pro
side.
I got you.
with her small teeth.
But,
Anyways.
but so she thought it was a fling, and then Greenwood being Greenwood, he's on the phone. I'm in town, so she's.
I followed
is
your
that-
happy ass to New York. Was more like it. I had no reason to come
Yeah,
here.
is that the next day he does that?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, which is pretty great.
Yeah.
Where are we having dinner? Should I pick you up at the office? Oh, I mean, that was great.
That was a good line when he was just
Also,
like, "Where are we going for dinner?"
That was also great. And then so I don't know. I mean, he used the word heel twice, but even said after at dinner, like, okay, it's no problem with me. And he got her to the hotel, and he's like, I would be a heel and tell you after this, but I don't want to be with kids. I thought that moment. That's when I thought this guy may be on the level, because if he was really a jerk face,
He'd have done it.
would've
He'd have
slept
gone
with
to
her
bed
first.
and then said, "Get out."
And then said, "Beat it. It's grand."
But that's
So-
not what he did. And I thought his frustration was so genuine, because well, you can't go to the pyramids. You can't go anywhere.
Yeah.
And it was obvious, like, this is what he's made. You got to think. He
Again.
walked away from a 22-year marriage because he wanted this. This is what he needs to do. And then he's putting himself back in that spot again, is how he's seeing it.
Right.
And maybe you can look at it from either point of view. Like, is the woman, quote unquote, the trap, or is the family the trap, or is it a mental thing?
Right.
Is it the person you were with? But either way, he has this idea that he's going to go to the pyramids and he's going to go travel all over Europe. He's going to do that on his schedule. He's got the money to do it. He finally meets, or not finally, but he meets the woman he wants to do this with. He's got it all worked out, because as far as he's concerned, she already said he doesn't have any kids. So you're just an account executive out and about. Absolutely. All right, awesome. Let's go do it. And then she's like, "Oh, but here's my 4-year-old." He's like, "Damn it."
Right.
And now he's got an emotional investment in her, and he's buying a house in New York, but not on 12th Street.
Wow. Yeah, he's like, yeah, I'm not living down there.
No.
I'll get
He's like,
I'll get a different place.
Yeah, nice
but
place
you can
by
come
the
visit.
park. You can come visit us. Which one I thought was very cool. I'm rooting for them.
I am
right?
too. He's like the Roger that could have been. He's got
Yeah.
a very similar archetype, but he's probably able to actually stay with her.
All right. Well, good episode. I mean, we saw a lot of everyone. We'll see where this thing goes. We have 4 left to sort of get. Again, I don't think we're getting any kind of real resolution, but hopefully we'll get somewhere where we get to a solid landing place with these characters. Again, I don't want to flash forward, but we'll see. How about some predictions then? Maybe.
And now, your AfterBuzz TV prediction.
Like I said earlier, I'm not the best at predicting this show.
Perfect. That way you can go first.
My only thing would probably be with Roger. Every time we see him, he is always like, "I'm so busy, blah, blah, blah." And we know he doesn't have the strongest heart, so I feel like at the end of this, he might maybe have another heart attack.
Oh.
I don't want to say that because he's my favorite one.
Don't
But
kill Roger.
also, I want to see more of him, though, if he's
I
not
know,
gonna
right?
if he's not gonna just kind of
More of that
fizzle
mustache.
off.
Yeah.
Would
The mustache is
no.
pretty terrible.
Oh, I want that thing shaved off so bad. That shit off your face.
They're really experimenting with the facial hair.
Oh, it was an awful
in the
time.
second part.
1970, baby.
1970. Everybody grew goofy hair.
Look at you. You got hair on your face.
Yeah, but I keep it trimmed to douche level. This is
right.
important.
That's
Someone, I was looking on Twitter earlier at the Mad Men hashtag, and someone like photoshopped everyone with the mustache, like Peggy, and everyone had just crazy facial hair. It's pretty funny.
That's a pretty bold prediction, by the way. The death of Roger. So I mean, I like that one. I don't want it, but I like
Well,
it.
I don't,
Joe?
it's something.
I don't.
like it.
I'm not making any predictions this season because this is the end of it, and I want to be surprised, and I'm not going to get invested in anything. And so I know we're supposed to make predictions, but I'm not going to do it.
That was the biggest
does what he wants.
cop out ever.
Whatever. You call it what you want.
Rock out with your cop out.
What? Oh, that's mean spirited. And you know what? I have the job I always wanted, and I don't have any kids. So no, I'm not making any predictions.
All right. Well,
How about you, Joe Braswell? What are your
I'll make
predictions?
predictions. I'll
I
go out
wish
there.
you would.
I'll go way out.
What do you got?
I predict.
Yeah.
No, I predict that. I think that Bruce Greenwood's character, what's my man's
Richard?
name? I think Richard and Scott Sonner dude will have a lot to do. I think they're going to come back sort of as people who are actually realizing their dreams and going after sort of what they want to go
Do
down.
you think Lou and the Monkey are coming back?
I do. I think Luna Monkey are coming back, and I think that somehow they'll be connected to Don, sort of realizing, oh, well, look at these guys. They're doing
They're following their
dreams.
So is Don coming to California? Is California where you exercise your
I don't
dreams?
know.
Maybe. My favorite line of this episode is when Peggy says, "Why don't you tell me all your dreams so I can shit all over them?"
That was great.
That was my favorite part.
That was amazing. Well, great episode. Thanks for joining us, Joe Flippo. Where can the kids find you?
You can find me on the Twitter at Joe Flippo, JoeFlippo, and my website is josephsanfelippo.com.
All right, Sterling.
And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Sterling Cates.
You can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Joe K. Braswell. Matthew Lieberman, you can find him on all of his various places.
And Lieber Friends.
And Lieber Friends.
Und Lieber Friends.
Lieber Friends. Oh, and thank you I forgot to do my extended iTunes shout out that Lieberman always does, but thank you for listening and watching on iTunes. Lieberman will make up for it next week.
Yes, he will.
We'll see you. Thanks, guys.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
You guys.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.